Good morning. Welcome, everybody, to Autodesk's Vision Series, The Future of Storytelling. My name is Hilmar Koch. I'm the Director of R&D of the project. And I'd like to note that amongst my friends, there is absolute agreement on the fact that being the director of R&D of the future of storytelling is the most ridiculous job title that any one person could ever have. And there's great comedic routines that are being spun up around that fact. But I found my purpose, and I'll tell you about that as we go along here. So let me set the tone a little bit. In Southeast Asia, polluted rivers are a matter of life and death. And people depend on rivers as a water source. And they drink from it. The Water is Life Foundation has invented a straw that filters water so that you can drink directly out of the river and survive. Not only have they done that, they are distributing the straws, and they've made an educational program in which they're taking kids into a virtual reality experience that teaches them what kinds of monsters are living inside the river and how they can defeat them with that straw. Survival, virtual reality, education, and they've told a story about it. And I salute certainly the Water is Life Foundation for doing this kind of work. Tucker Walsh at Missing Pieces, that is actually correct. Nate Robinson at Entropic, and Tactic and the Deutsch Agency for giving us this story.
สวัสดีค่ะหนูชื่อเด็กหญิงหวานใจบ้านของหนูอยู่ใกล้กับแม่น้ำสามประสบชื่อบ้านก็ชื่อวัดเก่าค่ะหนูรักหมู่บ้านของหนูถึงรักพอหน้าฝนพวกหนูก็เก็บน้ำฝนเอาไว้กินเอาไว้ใช้พอฝนไม่ตกพวกหนูกินน้ำจากแม่น้ำสำหรับครอบครัวหนูแม่น้ำคือทุกอย่างบางครั้งน้ำก็สกปรกแต่เราก็ต้องดื่มหนูชอบขอพรขอให้แม่น้ำสะอาด
ในวันนี้เนี่ยนะครับจะเป็นเกี่ยวกับการเล่าถึงน้ำในแม่น้ำเป็นอย่างไรนะครับใครอยากเล่นยกมือ
เกมที่พวกเราเล่นพาเราไปอีกโลกหนึ่งมีสัตว์ประหลาดอยู่ในแม่น้ำหนูจะไปจัดการสัตว์ประหลาดในแม่น้ำ
ที่เราใช้ในการต่อสู้สัตว์ประหลาดมันก็เหมือนว่าเครื่องกรองน้ำเล็กๆน้อยๆฆ่าเชื้อโรคแบคทีเรียต่างๆนะครับวิธีนี้
แม่น้ำคือชีวิตพวกเราต้องช่วยรักษาแม่น้ำให้สะอาด
เ Thank you for the applause for Water's life. Story is powerful. And let's have a look at your role in all of it. It's maybe a picture of you with your yellow, bubbly dreams and aspirations. And how have you gotten here? As a species, we have to survive bear attacks, carnivores hunting us thousands of years ago. We had to learn how to cultivate food, grow it, make fire to cook it and survive, form a family, have community, a sense of belonging. And we go to war. And some people, unfortunately, don't survive it. They can't leave a story. They also want to be remembered. So after bear attacks, growing food, having a family, going to war, you face one certainty, which is death. And story was a way for people to explain the world, teach what they've learned. If it's a good story, it forms a memory, it stays with people, and it gives them transcendence. We have mostly evolved, well, some of us have, and with us, the media has evolved and the way we communicate. And I'd like you to look inside for a minute and think about whether you have discovered your purpose. Are you insatiably curious? Do you have a yearning for the vast and endless sea? Did you believe in the bunny rabbit, the Jedi, or a higher order of any kind? Do you like to explain things, or are you here to entertain others? And if any one of those any one of those questions had a yes at the end of it, then there's a very, very good likelihood that you are a storyteller and that we have a lot in common. And by us, I mean the Narrativa team. We are a Horizon 3 team, which in Autodesk language means we're not working on the tools that are presently used by our customers, nor the features that are planned for that, but we're looking at what is going to be happening after that, years into the future. And as I mentioned, I believe I've found my purpose here. I joined Autodesk in April, and I had the honor of working at Blue Sky, ILM, and ILMX Lab for many, many, many years. And I have had the honor of experiencing the most wonderful storytellers and creatives at work and learning from them. I myself am not a storyteller, not a good one anyway. But I crave that feeling when I see a tool being used and when somebody's empowered and gets to tell their story well and better. That is what I'm here at Autodesk to repeat, hopefully for everyone in this room. And allow me a little digression here. The room is beautifully full. I thank you for it. I think I know why you're here. It is to reserve your seat to see John Knoll after me. Unfortunately, I have to tell you that we're going to be clearing out the room after me, and you're going to have to come back in for John. Sorry about that. But since I have a captive audience, strategic move on my part, let's talk about what the Narrativa team is seeing in the future ahead. I'm going to talk to you about contextual storytelling, generative world building, teams of the future. Contextual storytelling. We have all the tools at our disposal to experiment with, and we teamed up with Stiller Studios in Stockholm, which is a beautiful facility, all immersive virtual production facility. They have a robotically controlled camera, the Cyclops, and they have all state-of-the-art, present-day technology, and we're working with them to give them the ability to build the kinds of worlds where they still tell their stories in. And the story on hand is one of Simon, the android, not too distant future. Simon has had a rather tragic event during his fabrication that involved a rather toxic waste spill. And the poor thing is plagued with an obsessive compulsive disorder about cleaning the house. He is in this bachelor's pad looking after things, and it's so important to him that it's always in working order, that as soon as the bachelor comes home from work, the first thing has to happen is the umbrella gets taken away. So on that example, we're going to be looking at how we imagine one could build these worlds in which we can immerse our actors in. What kinds of windows you want to have onto that content, what kind of context we provide for everybody who is involved in the process, from the creatives, the production people, the planners. Everybody needs context out of their immediate focus. And what kinds of experiences people will have telling these types of stories. All right. Are we going to play the video from over here? Okay. So I'll narrate it a little bit. There's some music in the background. You should be looking for a glimpse of Maya, where Arnold is running in progressive refinement mode. And we're going to be talking about immersive windows onto the data, mobile experiences, as well as on-set experiences. To wit, here's Andrew using an immersive setup in which he's staging the room so that the robot has a clear path to walk through the scene. He can rearrange furniture, get live updates in Maya. On the top hand left, there's Arnold running in the background. So he himself is using the immersive portion. Others might look at the progressive refinement to see the final render. And as he's working through the scene, he's taken the robot and he's taking him along the path of travel, just planning ahead of production so that he can make sure that the lighting is looking good at every part of the way. Again, always getting good immediate context and feedback. And assuring that there's minimal amount of work done by a single person before we get ready, so that when we roll onto set, everything is perfect. So once he has cleared the path and he's verified that the lighting is good, we're going to the beauty lighting setup, for which he needs a mobile experience that he might take out the set. There's a little mobile device on the lower right-hand side, which they're making an experience right now, those two guys, where a limited set of sliders for lighting are being presented to the person who is taking the mobile window and walking out into the volume. So here Vincent is doing just a little tech check on making sure that he's getting interactive feedback directly in the mobile device, and there's another verification step that runs a little bit slower, but it is the final work of Arnold in Maya. So once this is verified and the director of photography, Andrew, has the lay of the land and he can see what kinds of controls he has, we can move on set. So we're switching from the world building over to the on-set experience now. And you're seeing Thomas Wall. He's working with the actors, walking them through the action. contextual storytelling right in front of him. It means the screen where a live action actor is composited directly into the world that we just built. He gets the context of everybody who needs a specific context gets it right away. Here's the motion control operator. He's also looking at a real-time composite. So the camera is seeing this, but the camera operator is seeing that. So that framing of the shot is always perfect, and there's no more guesswork. We moved from guessing to knowing what we're doing. And that is useful, of course, after we call cut here, for reviewing the work, because you want to have a mobile experience when you're in the volume and you want to review what just happened. You can bring up maybe a point of view for the actor on how the robot approaches him instead of just green, so that everybody has the context of their acting, of their camera work, of their photography, and their direction.
Cut. Very, very good. I think we have it.
Cool. So, what I just told you about contextual storytelling is very much de rigueur today. That's what we're expecting. This is present-day technology. Although this was a real-time actor in a fully built, fantastic world, things are coming. We are changing our relationship with computing. Computers are seeing, they're understanding, they're building, and they're experimenting. A computer's experimenting in a virtual world. For us, we're going to speak, we use gestures and sketch, we communicate in a different way, and we see the results in a different way through not just virtual reality and mobile context, but anything. So that's where it brings us back to you and your imagination, you yellow bubbles of imagination. That could be a memento that you brought back from your last vacation. It could be a concept that you doodled on a napkin. It could be the memory of the purpose that you have found here today. Or it could be the vision that you've had all along. So imagine a time when your memento, your photograph from your last vacation, a beautiful green lush setting with rocks, waterfalls, is something that inspired you to tell a story. And you need it as a basis to generate a new world. What if the computer could understand that this is a waterfall and it's falling from a certain height? It analyzes the chemical composition of the rock. It understands what kind of species of tree is on hand, and it presents this information back to you for you to then edit and modify and curate. And you can use something like Sketch in order to direct it from this starting point. If you wanted to say, if you look at part 3 here, instead of the forest, I'd like to, over here, get some spires, roughly in this form. And the red lines, that might be the area where I would like to see rock, and green is water, and the purple, the pink is waterfalls. This gives the computer just enough information to generate worlds, and it changes your role when interacting with the computer. I should point out that this is done by Ryan Gitter. He is an awesome concept artist, and not everybody is Ryan Gitter. Is Ryan Gitter in the audience? No. Too bad. But what we can do is can give you a variety of starting points. Like generative design is all about putting loose constraints or strong constraints on a system and letting it give you a variety of options. And then your role is one of a curator and an editor, and you infuse it with your spirit at that moment in time. Another example. In this fantastic story world that you just built, you need riveting performers, of course. And your buddy might be a good person for voice and put together a beautiful table read for a hero like the one right here. It's our good old friend K2SO from Rogue One, which hopefully you'll hear about in a few minutes. But you know what K2's origin story is, his likes and disdains, his motivations, call to action, and hero's journey, and you have his voice. Wouldn't you be interested in directing him just like a human being? And if you can build these worlds and you can put these riveting performers in there and infuse it with wonderful sound, wouldn't you want to see it through any reticule? Any camera that you train out in the world is going to see your creations. Imagine that. If that's possible, what would you do then? You might find that you and your yellow, bubbly dreams, you're a little bit alone. You can do a lot of things well, but there's some things you cannot do all by yourself. What if you wanted to tell a story that is all about all the languages of the world, and an idiom or a turn of phrase has a completely different meaning in one language compared to another? Wouldn't you want on your side a script supervisor who at any moment in time can tell you, this is why this works in this context, in this language, but it would be dangerous to put into your movie or into your narrative of any kind in another language? You could have such a person on your side. Or what if your imagination has led you to a place where you're building a planet that has a completely different chemistry and therefore a different biology and therefore a different kind of tree and plant that grows from it and a different kind of fruit and vegetable that grows from it, some of it poisonous or not? Wouldn't you need a greenscaper who is going to get knowledgeable about all of that to inform the richness of your story? Or if your story is set in 2,000 years in Lagos in Africa, let's just say for a random example, and everything has changed. Commerce has changed. Social structures have changed. How people do work, how they do commerce. Wouldn't you need a different kind of actor and extra that you can enrich this world with? Somebody who can instinctively know what the right thing is to do, how to make money, go eat food. You and your yellow bubbly dreams will have a brain trust on your side to help you navigate your story world. And together, you have a whole lot of passion and ideas. However, there's one problem. Dots on a page, a story makes not. A story comes from the connection, the flow of the ideas, how one idea leads to the next, where it starts, where it ends, what the dramatic moments are. And a story comes from doing this, rearranging this and testing it over and over and over again with your friends, with your audience, informed with new ideas that you find along the way or plot twists that you develop as you go along. And we want to get from the idea on the left-hand side to the story in the middle. And that requires researching, it requires ordering, it requires connecting the ideas and infusing it with your research and with your spirit. It's one example to reinforce that. This is a little sketchbook from an artist who has obviously a knack for Native American stories, and there are additional little mementos that they've collected along the way. I envision that taking this canvas, having the ability to focus in on certain areas, and starting to research those, starting to draw connections is the way stories are going to be made. That is true today, but I want that to be a possibility for everyone. The best storytellers do that. They iterate and iterate and iterate. They find the connections. They do research on the feather and on the notes for the background stories for their characters, what the connections are. Some of them fabricated, some of them real. And even in the act of changing the story lies a story. That is the valuable material. You will find that changing it will make it better or make it worse, and that is information you have to know. It is that marble that when you put the tip of your chisel on it, it will tell you what story it is that you need to tell. You keep going through that, and through that process, at the end of it, your story emerges. And your story emerges so that your hero can complete his journey, and in turn, for me, to complete my purpose. So we talked about contextual storytelling, generative world building, augmented teams. Take that with you. And when we make all of that true, we believe you can make anything. So we do have quite a bit of time left before I have to kick you out. But if you'd like to come to the microphone, state your purpose, or say anything else, I'm happy to entertain you some more. Anything? Oh, okay. Yes, please. If you could come to the mic, or I'll repeat the question, one or the other.
Yeah, I think everybody is interested in storytelling, especially in combines with the technology. Is there any plan for Autodesk to provide future storytelling courses or sort of education that we can adapt? Or any resource, you know?
There are resources. There are certainly resources. I mean, storytelling is, books have been written about it, of course. The question was whether Autodesk is going to do education on storytelling, and the answer is no. Others do that much better. If you look up Craig Caldwell, he just has a book out that's really great. And the university courses. It's all out there, but I think what isn't out there is the ability to do this in an orderly, preservable fashion so that we can, keep that story in the process and how we got to it for the next sequel to it, or, or inform another kind of story that follows that's relative to it. So that's the thing that we are going to be focusing, not so much on the education. Anyone else? Yes.
Your vision for the collaborative future?
Yeah.
Are the other team members human? Or are the other team members various versions of AI?
There's a smart man in the audience who wants to know whether my team members are virtual or not. They are, I think of them as virtual. They are AI. But in a sense that these are just people that help the process, or these are systems that help the process. Simulations in virtual worlds and story worlds. That is nothing that humans can do right now, but I do believe that through machine learning, through artificial intelligence, we will create those kinds of systems. Hi.
Not everyone is a storyteller like John Knoll or like George Lucas.
Yes.
Do you believe that with the right tools, everyone can become one? Or?
Do I believe that everyone can be a storyteller? So I think, just repeating the question, whether everyone is a storyteller, you feel like John Knoll, not everyone's a John Knoll or a George Lucas. Oddly enough, I believe it is in our nature. It is in our nature. It has had a biological function. And so there's two sets of people that you need to consider. Ask a three-year-old a story about a car and watch him go for an hour. without effort at all. Fantastic stuff. I mean, it is still in there. I think we kind of stop doing it at some point, but then it returns. For those people, and there may be one on the stage right now, when you have half of your life behind you and there's things worth telling and thinking about, you start turning them into stories because they ought to be remembered. It's worth it, right? That's why we write history. So I do believe you are a storyteller. You just have to find it.
Okay.
Andrew Bedini. Hello.
Can you talk about some of the biggest challenges you face with gestural generative design?
Yeah. Really good question. The question was about the biggest challenges that we have in gestural generative design. It's absolutely current day research that is happening. And actually, I just fell in love with SIGGRAPH again on this SIGGRAPH because there's lots of really interesting research going on in this area. I think the challenge is the curational challenge, right? You can, when you put a gesture in there and you say this has a really just a loose constraint on my target object that I want to build, then you're going to get back from generative design thousands, millions, or billions of results. And then curating those and editing the ones or honing down on that is what can be a little bit challenging. So the strength of the constraint that you place on the system, like at some point it will get so indirect that generative is not the right way to do things anymore. I think you want to get yourself closer to the target result and then have direct control over your methods.
Hi, great talk.
Thank you.
I'm building a product to commemorate people's immigrations, their stories, the stories of their immigration coming to America. In that, I'm building ship models. And I need, and I'm building all the relationships among these different ships, what they look like, which ships are what kind of ships, and so on. Now, what I can imagine in the future, I hope I get this, I'm around this long, but those stories are about someone coming from someplace, going someplace, and there is a sea journey, and we have information about that. So we could kind of animate that. We could build that story. Yeah. All right, so here's my question. I can understand how to build that story in Maya and in the tools you have. Yeah. But what would be really interesting is if when I build this story for this customer, and that story for that customer, and that story for that customer, well, it turns out that these two were on the same ship. Mm-hmm. I'd like to have that so that animation is part of an emerging story that's individuated, but nonetheless aggregated. Does that make sense to you?
100%.
Okay.
I think that's the interesting stuff that we've been building stories that are curated for the exact same story, curated for many, many people, but there's individual interests that are now driving this really big fractalization of story almost. I mean, if you look at the YouTube content that's available right now, it's something for everybody's taste in there, and that's a little bit of the core, I think, of your question. Like, it's my purpose in telling the story may have a very specific audience that I am kind of finding here, and you want to build stories that are meaningful for the different audience members. Is that correct?
How do you bring them together on the other side? So in YouTube, they're all different.
Oh, I see what you mean. I'm sorry.
Well, a whole bunch of these actually relate to each other.
Yeah.
They need to be consistent.
Yeah. That is a really tricky problem. There is, I'm not going to go there personally, but I saw an amazing course by Disney Research, which was about computational narrative. It's just machine learning or machine-assisted pathfinding through a story graph. So they're talking about, I'm starting over here, I put myself on that journey, I'm interacting with the audience, so now I'm going to find the best way to get me back to where I need to be, although the paths will be different for the different groups. So what I like about talking to those guys, it's a complete mind meld when I talk to them, is that they think about this in computational terms, but I think of it as in terms of the creative. How do we as a creative approach this problem? I don't think we're far apart at all. Like, if you have at least a digital vessel for how to express these stories that are bifurcating in these many ways and then bringing them back together, then I think you will have a tool that you can accomplish that. And they're trying to compute it, so they're a step ahead of that. Right?
Hi. So we've talked about the potential for future teammates that are AIs and generative design. Now, at what point, though, are we kind of taking the human element out of it and we need to go back to pen and paper and cave drawings and original storytelling around the fire?
Yeah. That is a concern. I think I've heard that reflected back to me quite often, that people are in fear that the human are not interesting anymore. But I fundamentally believe that's not going to happen. I think what we're going to get is better assistance in getting to that place, like a structure that holds what matters to us the most. My favorite story is that Hemingway 6-word novel, Baby's Shoes, Never Worn, for Sale. I don't know if you've heard that one. That is meaningful to anyone, and particularly if you're a parent. It is one of the most powerful stories that's out there. To a machine, it is meaningless. Yeah. Just know that, like we are the reason, like the human condition is really why we're doing this and why it's interesting. And if it's without soul, it will be without soul if it is purely constructed. Not getting there, aren't they?
Well, I just feel like there are a lot of stories that are out there that are definitely lacking soul. I mean, there's movies that come out all the time that are just pointless and it's just explosions and cool VFX, stuff that many of us here at the convention have probably worked on. But at what point do we have to kind of start weeding things out and casting aside terrible ideas to bring forward the good ones? Because a lot of great movies go unnoticed and they're only showed at independent, film festivals and stuff like that.
Well, I think business in itself and people's interest is already changing the way it's being consumed. And yes, if the only answer is how to make a story better is to put more explosions in it, then I think it's going to be a rather pointless race. So why don't we take this outside afterwards? I think I should think about releasing you all. Any last quick questions? Right over here, okay.
Really quick, a couple
Yes.
slides ago you had a quote that started, computers see, understand, build, experiment, people. I just wanted to get the rest of it because I was taking a note and I didn't get it in time.
People sketch, and I'll show it to you later.
Great, thank you.
Yep. All right. Well, thank you all for coming. Have a good show.